Okay. Hey guys, this is Tolhi, and welcome to Let's Build a JRPG Part 17. I believe we should be live on everything. A bit of technical difficulties this morning, but it looks like everything's now working. So good, good, good. Um, it's been a bit. It's been about a month and a half since we've checked in on the project. Been doing some stuff, as we can see from Source Tree. Uh, the workflow has changed a little bit slightly. With additional help on the project now working in a branching structure. So whenever we make changes, we put them into a branch and then we merge those branches back into the main line, which is the blue line. So people can go do work, and then when they're done with that work, we bring it back in and kind of reconsolidate back into the main branch that everyone works in. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the structure has changed a little bit. I think the last time we left off, we were around stream 16. So stream 17, what do we want to cover that happened off camera? So someone sneaky added a main menu. We added element start, refactoring, and the element manager setup. Okay, that was the stuff we did on the last stream. Removed all of the asset store stuff that we had brought in. So now you might notice when I started up that stream, the main combat scene looks a little bit different from the last time you've seen that. That's because I basically ripped out of source control all of the store asset stuff, or we never had it in there to begin with, but I made sure that as I opened up the rest of the project that none of this stuff went out into the shared. So I'm trying to use no Unity assets now. Everything that we see here is, for the most part, hand built by Drixie. So that's exciting. Does mean we're limited on options right now on what we can use to show, because we basically are waiting on art as it comes in. Okay, so I set up the abilities to generate elements and to consume elements. So we can see now this thing does -1 red, but if we go into black magic attacks, there's a +1 red ability. Also we changed it so everything is keyboard inputs now. So instead of pushing on buttons with the mouse, I also changed the entire input system so it's all controller or keyboard based. So I'm using WASD and then enter to perform actions. Pretty happy with that. This feels a lot better to me now just from this. As we use some of these black magic attacks, these abilities generate elements, which we can see are getting generated in the top section up here. Also, the character swapping is all working correctly, so as we perform these actions, the characters switch places because the one who's using the attack, the elemental attack, is the companion. So all of that's working. We also have turn order set up. This is a thing that I did last night, honestly, or was it the night before? But I got turn order set up so we can see the order in which characters will go. We have red, blue. Starting from the bottom, we have the red character, the blue character, the earth character, and the lightning character. Fire, ice, earth, lightning. And then we have 2 grays for the 2 golems on the other side. Again, I'd like to replace these with the faces, but I'm slowly making progress. But we can't... Well, I gotta have some sort of color denotation so that I can tell what's happening a little bit easier. It occurs to me that I can't see chat. I'm going to pop chat out here, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. Cool. So now if we perform this ability, which is Flame Slash, then it will consume that fire that we had produced, and it does a little bit more damage in the back end. In setting up these abilities to consume fire or consume elements, I have it so that abilities require an element, abilities have an optional requirement, and some of them consume as much as they can and give a percentile bonus based on how much they can consume. Not sure if I'm going to go with optional, required, or consume as much, or some combination of the 3 of those, but those are the systems I've built and I'm playing with to try and prototype and see if it's something that I think is interesting. We also had someone sneaky add a tile map system, which we'll take a look here in a second. This is the keyboard UI stuff I was just talking about, where I've now moved everything to be keyboard inputs. On the tile map stuff, someone sneaky made it so the roofs of houses can disappear when you enter them. And then this is me just adding more UI to represent the abilities doing stuff. Sewer spacing, camera distance stuff. And then, yeah, me doing the first pass on the turn order and getting the UI for the turn order stuff. I want to rip out all the ATB stuff that we had before. But for most part, yeah, we've made a bunch of progress in the last month. It's coming along. So what do we want to do today? I think I want to get rid of this blue background. I've kind of been using this placeholder blue background just so it's not sky text, skybox. This cloudy thing, so I've just got a big blue background in behind everything. I'd like to replace that. And I'd like to try and replace that with the tile map stuff. So let's go take a look at the tile map stuff. So this is something that's kind of cool. This is using Unity's tile mapping system. So all of these things are basically placed on a grid. And then we have a character. This comes from like Unity's Isometric starter project. They give you a bunch of basic tiles to work with and a little character model that can walk around. But yeah, this stuff is kind of, it's making the progress. And so then we're going to take a jump back over and we're going to go back in. So like, this is neat. This is cool. Let's actually show how we work with this by going into the combat scene and trying to build a background that kind of fits. So I guess the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to set up a space for this. Because technically, most of this stuff now is happening on this main camera. So when we hit play, we generate a bunch of entities that kind of float in front of this camera. But we're going to want to now set up maybe another camera for the background to look at the tile map. Because I don't think I actually want to have these things perfectly set up. Switch it to 2D mode so we can see what's actually happening. Yeah, we've got this nonsense because I still have them positioned as if they were in 3D space. I want to clean some of this up as well. These characters shouldn't be spaced out like this. They should just be on a flat plane, just up and down, rather than using depth to render them. But this is because we transitioned from 3D and I haven't fully fixed all the crossover or the switch over issues. So let's make a new camera. Okay, and this camera is gonna call a new parameter, I think. I don't want it to have a skybox. I want it to be probably orthographic. Distance 3. Actually, maybe what might be the easiest thing to do here, don't save. What if we just grabbed this version of reality? Where is this camera placed? This camera's placed at -100. Okay, so it's really far away from it. Don't think that's entirely necessary. But this has kind of the settings I want. So yeah, let's grab this camera. Just for a base point. Okay, so we've got this camera. We will change it to solid color. And then we're going to move this off 100 in the negative. So it's just kind of happening over to one side. Still not enough. Okay, let's go -1000. Just so it's the background stuff will be not overlapping with all this other UI nonsense. And then save that. And then where was the grid placed? The grid was just placed at 0, 0. Okay, so then we want to just do create an empty object. Actually, can we just do window 2D? No, create 2D tile map. That'll generate the grid object for us. Okay, so this thing is at 0, 0. So we actually want to put it at a -1000. So it should be right in front of the camera now. Okay. Switch back to 2D mode. We want to switch this tile map to be using similar settings to the town. Let's take a look at what those settings are. So these things are top right aligned sort order, individual, auto detect none. Okay, and then for the tile map itself, it's XY110, frame rate 1, okay. 0.51, isometric XYZ. Okay. Okay, let's set that up the same way because we're going to have an isometric style for our game. So the grid we want to be isometric, not rectangular, which kind of makes everything diamond shaped, which is cool. And then all of these values are different. I think we had 110, XYZ, top right, individual, auto. I feel like there was something else different. 0.51 is the cell size. Okay. I knew there was a 0.5 in there somewhere. Okay. So that should be a workable grid. Set up relatively correctly. We'll zoom into the center. So this is where the center of our map will be. Okay. Now let's go take a look at some new assets that Drixie has made. So when we did that town scene we were just looking at, that's all using the basic tiles that are given to you via the sample project that Unity gives out to kind of teach you how to set up and use some of these like isometric pieces. Drixie has been playing with building her own. Let's bring some of those in. So we're going to need to build a palette for the sprites because right now we just have the sprites that she's built, but we actually want to bring them into a form that allows us to paint on our tile map. So we're going to open up the tile palette, which looks like this. How do I want to space this? I want this embedded on the bottom, I think. So I want this down here. And then I'm going to pull all of these tabs over. Probably don't need all these tabs open anymore, to be honest. Some of this has been just continuously added over time. Yeah, probably don't need any of the inventory stuff. Okay, so then if we click on our tile map again, and we take a look at this tile map, or this tile palette, we can click on some of these objects. Can't turn on Z. Interesting. Okay. All right, so now we can have these tile pieces. We can place this, and then if we want, we can hit plus minus on the keyboard in order to go up and down levels. Something is still not right with the settings. This should go up to being perfectly aligned. Something is still wrong. I have not quite figured out how to build this thing yet. From scratch. So we're going to be lazy, and we're going to grab the version from town and reuse it. Because I can't quite get these settings to work the way that I expect them to. So let's delete everything except base. Now, base should be working the way I think it should. Let's check. So if I go in here and I select one of these, I can go plus one level, it goes up. I can go plus one more level above that, and everything's spaced correctly. Okay. I can go down a level. I can start building in these walls. I can go up a level. Like so. I can go down, have this thing be behind. All right. Now it's working as I think it should. Cool. So now let's erase all of that. Go up a level. This will be tricky. Is there a simpler one that we could use as the base that we don't have to do as much erasing on? Okay. Sorry. Double checking to make sure everything is... Okay. Which of these is the most simple? Probably the floor. Let's try and erase the floor. Now, when someone sneaky made this, put it on layer 10 for some reason. Okay, so this is now an empty tile map that works the way I think it does. It has the appropriate settings. We're good to continue. Let's bring in a new palette, and the way that I'm going to build that new palette is the same way that I've been doing everything else this stream because I don't fully understand what I'm doing. I'm going to copy and paste an existing one. So let's copy and paste basic. Let's rename this sewer. Okay. And then under the tile section, we're going to make a new folder, which is called sewer as well. Surprise, surprise. And then in this sewer one, we're going to remove all of the... We're going to try and remove all of these pieces. Edit. There we go. So we're removing all of these existing assets from this tile map. So we're starting with a clean palette. Now, I want to add Drixie's sewer pieces. So let's see, can I multi-drag? Can I drag in like a bunch of these things at once? I can. And now it's going to ask me where do I want to make the prefab little assets that it's going to build with this. So isometric, tiles, we made a folder, stick them in here please. So it generated a bunch of pieces and now we have these objects. Now I want to move these objects around on here though. I don't want them all clumped up like this. Let's get the rest of them in first. So let's grab all of these floor tiles and let's drop those over here. Let's put those in the same place. Wow, I didn't realize you could do the drag and drop thing. That's actually pretty cool. Tiles, sewers, dump those in. Okay. A couple of those pieces do not have the correct import settings. These ones. These need to be pixels per unit 64, and they need to be filter point so that they don't try and do any like... If the filtering basically will try and like interpolate and add fuzziness, and these things are pretty small, so we kind of want it to be pixel accurate. So we're going point, and then 64 per unit is just, it's the right setting. These things are 64 by 64 images. We make them 64 pixels per unit, and they'll fit within these squares because that one, yeah, anyways, that's Unity stuff. It's because Unity. Oh, we still have some pieces on the floor that we need to get rid of. Where, oh where, do these walls live? Oh no. Where did Sneaky One put them? I'm not sure why Sneaky One decided to put these things on random Z values so far out. It only needed to be Z value 1 or 2 higher. Can I just hold? Will it remove it if I just hold? If I hold erase and I hold up and down on the Z plane, can I track these things? No. I just want a basic tile map. Is there some way that I can wipe the data from this thing to make this thing empty? Things are being difficult today, it seems. Alright, let's go back to the town scene. Because I don't know how to set this thing up. Let's try a different one. So let's try getting rid of the floor, this. What is the details here? What is this object? That looks like it might just be a couple pieces. Is there anything out in the distance this time? Because that's what caught us last time, was the floor. Okay, let's try erasing. Where is this roof tile? Okay, proving difficult. Moving on. Okay, we are selecting the right layer. I did not think that this would be such a tedious process. I thought I could just set up a new one. Okay. We're just waiting for one of these things to erase. We're just going up in value until we find the spot where this is layered on. There has to be a way to do this. If anyone knows a way to actually tell what layer a object is on, that would be great. Well, it doesn't seem to be in the positive unless I missed it. Okay, it's going negative. See if it's below, which doesn't make any sense. It can't be below. If we go to 2D mode, can we see about where this object is? Because where it is in the scene should be about its position. Can we select it here? If we create a new game object, and we put that thing at a negative 1000, 0, 0. Where would that game object be? It's way over there. Okay. Now if we bring that forward until it intersects with these wall tiles, it's around 55. Okay. Let's go back to 2D. Let's go to erase mode. We'll make sure we have detail selected. And then let's go to 55. Somewhere around 55? Bane of my existence. Okay. What about the wall tiles? Are these ones on some sort of reasonable level? Let's go. Oh no. They all got placed in random spots. Okay, let's make a new tile map. Let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, let's make a new tile map. Isometric Z as tile map. Let's position it correctly. Let's try and have it have the same settings. Order layer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, these settings look the same. Okay. Now, if we go to 0 so that we're not painting in nowhere land, and we go to 2D, and we go to tile map, if I select this and I place this here, place a couple of these, then we grab a wall piece, and if we do +1, no. What is the difference? What am I missing? Maybe it's the type of tile map? Or if we just make an isometric tile map, not Z as the depth. Let's turn off the other one to reduce confusion. Okay, at 0. If I push +1. No, it won't go over top. How did Sneaky One set this up so that these tile maps work? What setting? Is it something debug? Is it some hidden value that I can't see? There is a lot of hidden values. Okay. Let's add another inspector tab. Let's lock this one to selecting our new tile map. Okay. So this one, they're both selecting the same thing. If I now select, this is now selecting a different one. So what is the differences between these two objects? The size, but that makes sense because yeah, this all still makes sense. Okay. Try and line these two up so I can better read between them. 32, 32, 16, 16, top right. Individual? Okay. Okay. So, we got there. We need to make 2D tile maps, but they need to be isometric, not Z as Y tile maps. They just need to be a basic isometric. And then I had to make sure that I was actually selecting... I can return this back to its home. I need to make sure that I had changed the new tile map. Didn't even need debug mode. I just need to make sure individual mode was on. That seemed to be the difference. Well, this has been fun. So we're figuring out tile map stuff together. So let's get rid of all these other ones. And then let's go remove all of these pieces. So I've only gone up and down one level, so it's easy to get rid of it all. Okay, where is 0, 0 here? Somewhere here, I would guess. So let's paint in tiles like so. Just grabbing random ones for now. And then let's add some of these walls. I do want to space these out, so let's go to edit. Let's go to move. It's not going to work. Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll just copy and paste. So we'll grab this one, eyedropper, and we will put that one there and then delete it. Then we will grab this one, we will put it there and then delete. This is how we shall space these things out. Again, I feel like there has to be a way to actually like move, like right click or shift click, or there has to be some commands, but I just don't know what they are. So we will do it by hand. Okay. I feel like I want them a little bit closer. Let's see, if we grab this guy, put that one there, grab this guy, put him there, then we can erase those two. Just organizing my palette. Now, can we put these one level back? We can. Seems pretty good. Okay. Now we can kind of keep them all a little bit more centered. Cool. I kind of feel like these information, I don't care if they're super wide, but I am kind of missing having a wide inspector, and I don't think I need that much space. Let's try this layout. Messing with my mind a little bit, but I'm trying to find something that works. So then let's grab one of these tiles. Let's grab this wall tile. I like this one. And let's paint him in. We are painting above the world. Did we paint these floors on the wrong level? We did. I want to paint the floor at 0. That's I think the trickiest part of this is just getting my head wrapped around. Is this the seamless one? Yes, this is the one that Trixie built that had no seams in it. Cool. I like this one a lot. I did it again, didn't I? Okay. 0. Building floor at 0. And ideally around the center. Okay, after much fooling around, we've now gotten to the point where we have a bit of something. Let's give this thing a... Is it a layer or a tag? A layer. Okay, so let's add a new layer. And let's call this combat background. And then let's change this thing's layer to combat background and all of its children. And then let's make it so this thing doesn't see anything except combat background. Okay. Interesting. Camera is not centered on the tile map. I thought the tile map was in one spot, but it was in another. Okay, that looks pretty dead center now. Okay. So we have this. Now, if we look at the game scene, what does the game scene see? Perfect. Well, maybe not perfect. Let's see. Where is our cameras? Our main entities, which is where all of this stuff should be as well. So then the main camera is currently at depth 1. This main camera is at depth -1. That seems actually all right. Let's fill this thing out. There's actually a faster way to do that. We can grab this tool. I'm going 1, 2, is that 4, 5? 1 for my starting spot, 2, 3, 4, 5 in, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully should be somewhat centered. Okay, it's behind everything else. Sweet. The only thing about that is I don't know. So we've been discussing between me and Drixie that the camera distance we're kind of liking with her tiles are at this level 3. So if we just look through the main camera preview here, you can kind of see it here as well. This is kind of an okay size. That's pretty close to what would be seen in a combat scene, or in a regular scene. Let's go back to town, just so I can steal the basic player. And then we were thinking that we would scale this down to about this size. So for when we're walking around the overworld, or not overworld, but in like dungeons, that's kind of the sizing that we were thinking. Something along these lines. And then for comparison, or not comparison, but for reference, is it I? Yeah, it's I. That's kind of the sizing. That's kind of the sizing we'd like to try and go with. But I'm not entirely sure if that's the sizing I want to go with for the combat scene. Because, again, the combat scene assumes that we're like zoomed in a little bit more in general. Because if we're thinking that our hero, I haven't actually done this yet. We've just been using this thing as reference. But if we grab the art for, say, the golem. Actually, let's hit run. Run will show us the art. Clearly, this guy and this guy are not the same size. Eventually, this version will be this guy on the ground. We're debating whether or not, now that the tile map stuff is happening and this is kind of more pixely, whether or not we'll keep this as like a fluid line art, but I do love this golem. So we may end up doing like pixely environments with like more hand-drawn characters. We'll see. Still very much in the early stages of that stuff. But regardless, my point is that if this is supposed to be the character walking around in the world, will eventually be this guy, clearly different in size. So we must assume that if we're walking around in the overworld in kind of this spacing and this sizing is what we're looking at, then we want the combat scene to be more zoomed in. But by how much? I guess we can answer that question just by looking at the difference in size. Because right now we have, like, this would be a dungeon. What we have in the background, I've kind of built what I think would be a kind of a basic dungeon setup. So then if we assume that that is the case, if we can get their feet lined up, I would say that this character is about half the size of our current combat character. Now we could make our current combat character smaller too, but let's assume that we want to zoom in about double. The way we do that is by going into just make this a little easier to read. So this is the cam for the comm background. If we have currently a size of 3, if we change the size to 4, we zoom out. So if it's currently 3, then if we half it to 1.5, this should be about double the zoom in. Okay, so let's get this guy out of here now because we're not playing with dungeon sizing. And now, assuming that that's the camera size, we can kind of actually use this exact perspective to see what the camera is going to see, because this white outline here is the camera's view. We can kind of build a little bit of a scene. So let's click on the tile map. Let's erase these walls. Let's put back the floor. Okay, so where would we... Maybe we want to do hints of the walls on the corners? What would that look like? Is that enough? So one thing we run into here... Oh, that's neat. That doesn't work past a certain angle, but you can kind of pull down a little bit too. I actually don't hate that. It's a cool effect as well. Just trying to play with like different perspectives, because I think what we're running into is that the isometric world that we're building doesn't quite match up with the perspective of these characters. These characters don't exactly look to be in the same camera view. Like they don't match exactly. If we pull it down a bit, does it help? I think it legitimately does. I think that pulling it down by 45 degrees makes it feel more like these guys are standing. What if we add up some more walls? Can I even edit this way if this thing's on a tilt? I imagine I should be able to. A little harder to know what the camera's doing or seeing now, but not the biggest deal. Oh yeah. Okay. While editing, we may have to go back to a regular, because it's very hard to tell what's happening here. Okay, and then if we rotate this thing by 45, yeah, this gets weird. Oh, and it gets weird in that way too. Because again, because we rotated the whole thing, what used to be one layer up and matched perfectly, any kind of elevation gets broken completely. Yeah, it just starts to space away as we tilt the camera. And like in general, this causes like a squishing effect on the tiles. They get like slightly distorted as we, or a lot distorted as we rotate as well. Yeah, this is the first time I've really looked at the characters together, because we've kind of been building the world stuff in a vacuum outside of looking at them with the golem and the character concept. So it's interesting for sure. Okay. Did we cover up the UI? Why isn't it anyone's turn? I just realized the UI isn't showing up. Did we introduce an error somehow? It doesn't like the fact that there's an audio listener on our new camera. But I just realized the game just kind of stopped, didn't it? At some point, the command window stopped showing up. What did we do that broke the command window? It's always something, isn't it? Interesting. By having this be the camera, or having this camera in the scene, it causes our game to break? That's likely because somewhere we're just doing a dock camera call and it's grabbing what it thinks is the main camera. And because we added a new camera, it's now confused about which one is truly the main camera. Is my best guess. That is a bug and a half. I don't even know where to start looking for something like that. Well, I guess we look at the UI. Like, did it even turn on the UI? Why is it not letting me zoom to these objects? Because they are off in nowhere land. Okay. Yeah, that's what's happening. I get it. So the action menu actually is up. The trick is that I did a bunch of code when I built the keyboard controller stuff. I wrote a bunch of code that basically found the character's position on the screen based off of the camera. And then based off of the camera, it puts targeting buttons on the guys, and it also will align the combat menu with whoever's currently taking the action. But by adding this new camera, it's getting confused and trying to find the character's positions based off of the new camera we've added, which means that all the calculations of where the characters appear on screen is completely pooched. So we need to find the code where I calculate character positions. Let's just open a random script to get Visual Studio to open up. And then I want to navigate to the unit factory, I think. Okay, unit factory. In here somewhere is where we built a new component that is designed to add the selector. Selector sends a notification, selector init, which goes to the unit selector setup. And this thing uses a camera somewhere to do its math. Camera.main. This finds what it thinks to be what is one named main camera. This needs to be untagged. Solved. I think actually a way I'd like to do that a little better is instead of using that code is just directly referencing the camera in order to eliminate some of those bugs from happening, but also I'm at a stage now where like the reason that these debug white boxes appear is so that I can keep track of like well, it's easier to see when we don't have the background, but to see like if we are like encompassing the character correctly. The reason this one is so wide out is because there's a lot of transparency in the image. So technically this is wrapping this character perfectly, but the character just has a lot of white space around him. Which you can see here. He just has a lot of extra room. This should be brought in closer, and then this box would be a lot closer to him as well. Okay, so but I don't need these transparent selectors turned on anymore. Actually, they're an eyesore, but they were an eyesore for a reason. So this can just be 0 now. We don't need them. We don't need to see the debug stuff. We know that the system is working. Okay, so now that we got the game up and running again, do I like it? I think the answer is no. And I think if we have to tilt the whole thing by 45 to get like something that feels a little bit like closer to perspective at least, I feel like in general then we're just squishing all of the tile art. And I mean, it's fine, but like at that point maybe it's better to just draw real backgrounds. And maybe that's the ticket, is that we get something that we think looks right and then ask Drixie for each zone to draw a specific background for these guys to fight in. I'm also not 100% sure that the positioning is right. I think if it's isometric, the other thing that's kind of throwing it off is the fact that these guys are standing left to right, not diagonally. So part of me wants to say I'd like to see I'd like to see them standing like along the top edge, fighting along the bottom edge. But this doesn't give us a lot of room to work with laying out the team. They'll end up having to be very central. And on top of that, this perspective still doesn't work because if these guys are standing here facing down, then the enemies should be standing here facing up. Which we can draw the enemies and the heroes in different perspectives. So the enemies, you might just get to see the backs of them. What would that look like if we tried to lay out the characters? Now I'm just playing. I'm just designing at this point. We're not really doing much coding. But if we tried to lay out... Yeah, see, the fact that these guys are just floating also seems awful. Like, at this point, they should almost be on that same background canvas. Maybe I do want them all to be in the same space. Just so I can better line them up. Let's grab this down here for reference. Okay, so if we grab the top one, which is number 4, we try and just position him a little bit better. Like, he has to kind of go in the middle in order to make enough space. And then if we grab number 3, I guess we can kind of do some sort of like zigzag like this. Don't really love any of it, to be honest. They just don't look like they're standing on this thing. Like, I think the golems are more of a problem in some regards. I think that's because they were very much drawn on a flat line. You can see that these guys, at least their feet, are drawn with more of an isometric in mind, which is something that me and Drixie discussed as we were building the character concept. And like, there's a way that we can fix the golem. The golem, we just need to bring the arm down a bit, and by bringing his arm down a bit, it looks like he's more standing on an angle, a little bit more. But I think perspective is going to be the killer here, is drawing art assets that all match in the same angle of reference, assuming that the camera is in a spot, which obviously it is because we see everything. But from this camera, we would expect things to be at certain angles, and that perspective, that angle, is what's going to be tricky to nail on the art side, I think. But that's on Drixie, not me, so haha, not my problem. Sadly, that's not how this works. If we just disable the companions, which is the golems right now, do these guys at least look like they match in this world? I mean, obviously the art style is very different, but dude, perspectively, it looked like they're standing on the ground. Let's butt one up against the wall, because I think that's going to be the easiest way to tell. If we bring him over towards this wall, does it look like he's standing next to it? I think it does. I think, yeah, I think these guys are fine. I think it's really just the golem. Could we do a test to try and fix that, I wonder? Let's bring in the golem prefab. Yeah, it's too far out in space. Where's main camera? Okay, now when this guy animates, he has a simple idol that plays like that. Okay. So then if we grab... If we start at the beginning and say we just pull his arm... Actually, I want to pull his arm down. Like literally just pulling his arm down a little bit and then moving his head a little bit more. I think fixes it. Now it looks like he's standing facing this way. I clicked off him. His arm starts to feel like it's like falling off a little bit now, doesn't it? Switching it to 2D helps a little bit. I mean, this animation was pretty rigid to begin with. We kind of built something simple. Well, that didn't help. I am not an animator. The animation doesn't need to be perfect. The question really is, if we pull the arm down and move the head a little bit, does it look like he's actually standing on the ground now? Because he didn't before. Yeah, because he's a quadruped too, so I think part of it might be his back legs look a little bit weird. Yeah, because this leg should actually be on the same level as this foot over here, I think. Because diagonally, they should be standing in about the same spot. Okay. Let's assume in some magical world that's perfect. And I don't think it is. But let's assume that's close enough. So if we brought everyone back in, now it looks like they're at least standing in this world, facing kind of in the general direction they should be, I think. With the background being the background that it is. Which again, it doesn't have to be. Trying to tweak all the characters to fit the isometric style might not be the right approach. The right approach might be to be like, hey, we like these characters. We like the golem. We like the hero. Let's draw a background that matches the perspective of them rather than trying to use the world art assets. But it'd be so much cleaner and easier to just use the world assets. Because then we don't have to make new pieces of art for every level. We just build the level art and then use the level art for the background scene. I think at the end of the day, they just don't really feel like they're fighting a side. Like, having them face across the battlefield like this doesn't work in an isometric game. I mean, if we look at something like another really great use here would be to find a reference page. So if we go to like Mario RPG, and we look at this image here, again, yeah, when it's isometric, kind of on this angle, it looks like they should be fighting this way. Same thing here. Same thing here. But this means that we need to have the backs of these characters, not the fronts. And this is obviously a much more exaggerated angle, actually. I think these are isometric in tile layout. So if we look at them down the center, compared to our hero, his stance is way wider than this. Yeah. Yeah, because this art is similar in the background art that we have, and I just don't think these guys necessarily fit exactly. I think for now, this is not something obviously I can solve because this is an art thing. So we'll have to I'll have to work with Trixie to figure out the right approach. But for now, to get something that's a background that isn't just a blue background screen, I think we just rotate this by 45. I swear, sometimes like this stuff can take forever. Just trying to figure out like how to actually say, like, I don't know. Art layout stuff is a long process. So we can't go too high, because if we go 2 tiles high, this won't actually be matching. It will be floating. And I don't think there's any way to do like lesser increments. Well, that changes everything. Is it this one I want? That one higher. What if I did a negative 0.5? That brought it closer. What about like a -1? What does the camera see? Yeah, because of the way that the sorting stuff works, I think this is actually... Because this is all an illusion. That's the thing. All of the tile map stuff is like a huge illusion. Thanks for the follow, Dev BB. So if we drop this thing down so that the offset is over top, it doesn't work. Because it doesn't overlap. Oh, I see your comment. Sorry, chat was closed for a second there. So are the left two fighting the other side? Yeah, that would be the idea. It would be turn-based combat. Not sure where the line is. Not sure how much you've been following or for how long, Dev. Dev BB. As it looks like you have teams, I think I would... Oh, is the dashes supposed to be the representation? I don't think I set up chat properly for this stream. What is that I'm turning on? Oh, that is chat. Okay. It's just kind of weird. Yeah, I think that the perspectives of these guys needs to be a little bit different. Are you suggesting then potentially doing... more like that, I would guess? Which I do agree looks better. Ooh, there is a way that we can stack this too high. It's a little bit finicky, but we can make another tile map. And on tile map 2, if we lay this thing out with that -1 offset that we were trying to play with, if we did that, but then change this tile map to be sort order 1, would that pull it in front? It does not. I really thought that would pull forward. Because it should be now sorting over top of everything. I feel like there's a way to do this with 2 layers. What if we rose this thing by 1? I didn't like that. There has to be a way to get this wall to overlap on front to be able to stack these things too high. Layer order 1 should be just the same as layer order 100. As long as it's a higher value, it should be overlapping in front, but it doesn't. I think that's because some of the other rendering pipeline stuff is taking precedent. Oh, because I'm dumb. That's why. Cool. If I turn off layer 1, look, it looks the same. That's because layer 2 that we've just duplicated is an exact copy of it, which means it has all of the other components of the other one. So if we want to do what I'm trying to do, I need to make sure that this new tile map layer is just that new wall piece. And then I should be able to do that overlap the way that I'm trying to do it. I've not found a better way to mass delete yet either. DevB, did I get what you were saying? Was what you were suggesting about making the right but reversing so that they face each other? Was that the positioning like diagonally? Was that your suggestion? Was I understanding correctly, or am I failing to grasp? Sweet. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay. I do think you're right. I do think having them go diagonally down the line does help a lot. Originally, I had them positioned in such a way that it would be like, oh, they're just in a group. But again, this used to be 3D models, not 2D models, and there's still a lot of crossover issues or transition problems. Okay. So now that should just be that tile. Okay, now if we take this one, and if we... Might be easier just to do this, honestly. Sweet. Cool. So now if we draw all of the walls on this second layer that's one layer in front of the other, we can create this effect of them being over top. You have brought up a good point, sir. DevBB says in chat, tile map data saves in play mode, question mark? No. No, it doesn't. All right. I think I know how to make a new one from scratch, though. I think we spent a bunch of time early on this stream figuring out that I need to make an isometric one. And then I just need to make sure the settings are 1, individual. Okay. Then we want to try -1 rather than copying and deleting. This should work. Okay, then I drop, grab the same one so that we have the same shadowing that Trixie has built us. And then we want to make sure that we're selecting tile map. So this, let's rename some things. This is floor level. This is second level, which normally I could do in one piece or one tile map, but because we're tilting everything by 45 degrees, we need to do this nonsense. Floor level, I drop, grab this wall, swap to second level, put this wall one level up. Change this to be sort layer 1. Okay. Oh, right. Technically, I can just do it at layer 0 because it's painting one square above. Yeah, this is fine. This is all fine. Okay. That was the wrong one. I want to try and keep the shading on the right sides. Drixie flipped some of the art for us. But for the most part, I'm not going to need to use flipped art. I want to try and keep the shadowing and the light on the same directions. Cool. And then we tilt the whole thing by 45. And it didn't line up in the scene. Lines up here. Still does not line up in the scene. Oh, because this isn't rendering, because we changed the camera only to render combat background. Haha! So now we can do 2 high walls. Cool. Let's see, what else could we do? So if we grab... Make sure to save that. Okay. It's kind of fine-ish. I mean, again, nothing here is final. More so than anything, I'm just continuing to refine my skills and understanding of tile maps. I just thought it would be a cool thing to get rid of the blue background so that we actually have something in here that looks a little bit more like a combat scene. I need to make this arrow better too. I need to get Drixie to build me a hand, but I think the problem right now is the arrow is too small and it's also not dark enough. It just doesn't catch the eye. Gets lost with all the other like visual information because these rocks are so intense right now. So busy. That's a better way to put that. Can I make this thing larger? I think that'll help. I had hit select and I was like, nothing happened, but it was just that the cursor was lost and I didn't see it. So I need that cursor to appear bigger. So I hit that and then, yeah, that feels better. Although I might want it to be different sizes because this feels a little big now on here. Okay. Cool. Let's go play with the scene some more. See if we can make this thing look even cooler. We go back to the tile map. What else can we do? I guess we could put some walls on the bottom of the scene. Floor level, right? Yeah. Feels a little cramped at that point. Can we kill some of this UI a little bit? I don't love having the ability display object on. Okay. Honestly, probably one of the biggest things we could do is try mixing up these tiles a little bit. This one here, I believe, is the other one that Drixie made that is seamless with the other ones. Yeah. So the other big thing we could do is just start adding random tiles to kind of break up some of the sameness of everything. That helps. And then for aesthetic fun, oh, I think the lighting is swapped for this one. So we might want to swap all the lighting. Let's take a look at these real quick. How many ones? Yeah, all these walls have darkness on the left side with a little bit more lighting on the right. So we chose the one tile that is flipped. Let's fix that. Second level. Cool. Then we can grab another one of these. Trixie didn't figure out the seamless tile art stuff until the floor, and honestly these last two floors right here are the only ones that I think are using that seamless technique that she found. So everything else is kind of older art, but you can see the progression. I'm actually super proud of her. Like this is where she started, and then we're kind of got up to here, and that was about 1 day's playing around. It's actually kind of neat just putting goo on top of some of these buildings. Kind of has a bit of a neat effect. Let's go back to floor level. Let's grab some of these. When we're zoomed in so much, it's easier to tell the difference. Where did this go? Yeah. Are there any of these other tiles that I like that I want to throw in here? Just to kind of break up some of the busyness. There's also kind of like a white line that's appearing along like the shadowing of these tiles. I kind of want to just separate that a little bit. I think honestly that's probably the right call would be to ask Strixie to maybe make a little bit less of a highlight on some of that rock, because it just does create this kind of lining effect rather than trying to replace it with a bunch of variety tiles. But I think it's hard to kind of get rid of all form of like repetitive motion. But something I can point out to her. Again, she still only just started doing this stuff like 3 days ago, and really only had one solid day of work on it. I actually think that in general the sewer setting was like a really cool place to start. I like that. That's a good one. Do we have another version of that? Oh, this one just matches a little bit more. There's a little bit more groove. I can't tell the difference between these two. This one I think loses its perspective a little bit when we tilt it by this 45-degree angle. Which I do have saved, right? I am working within those constraints. Yeah, okay. like the kind of variety of this one here and there. Cool. Visual interest. Neat. How's everyone doing today? Having a good day? I am very much enjoying just laying tile. The other thing that we can do as well is we can create another new 2D tile map. We can make this -1 flow level. And then we can change this to be sort order -1. And then if we go back to the first level, I named the wrong one. Just curious if I can add a bit of the sewerway here, or if it takes up too much space. So if we go to -1, and then we grab a wall piece. Let's try something a little bit different. No, I need to pull this forward a bunch. I need to change this to be camera background again. There we go. Now we can see. Oh, you can see through some of these tiles. Oh, interesting. I didn't notice that right away. Not the hugest deal, I don't think. Is that also true when it's at a regular angle? It is. Interesting. I thought that these tiles were lined up perfectly, but it looks like there might be a little bit of transparency feathering that's happening on import. Was not seeing this when we were doing tests yesterday. Very interesting. Now, down here. That is not doing what I think it should be doing. It's not lining up the way I would expect. Oh, I didn't change the values on this thing. Is there still something Okay, I think we build at regular perspective. And then I think then we flip 45 degrees. Yes, that is how we do this. That's how we're going to play with this technique. Okay. We're going to build to level 2. We're going to change it to level 2. We're going to delete these objects. We're going to make sure we deleted them by removing this. Okay, there should be nothing there. Okay, now on level 2, we can grab... like that. Let's go back to the floor level. All of this, I think, is outside of the camera's view. But let's still do this correctly. Oh, actually... go down to -1, grab this. Okay, go to -2. And then like so. Back to -1. I can't see it under the UI anyways. Okay. How does that look when we expand? It's not super visible by any means. It's underneath the UI for the most part, but still I think it adds a little bit more visual flair than just floor into the end. Especially if we can get this animating at some point, that could be kind of cool. Oh, wait, the reason for that is we haven't flipped it back again. So if we go 45, there we go. Okay, okay. I think that looks all right. It's not perfect, but again, we're still very much in prototype mode, and it's definitely better than just nothing, essentially. Yeah, like I like that more than just a blue background. Cool. And it does bring up all these questions about perspective, and the more we can see those, the more that me and Drixie can communicate and try and figure out how to solve some of those issues. Sweet. Seems cool. Seems cool. I don't really know what else to do today. That was kind of as far as I got. And honestly, to be perfectly frank, I didn't think that was going to take 2 hours to like get a background. Or I guess it was an hour and a half, but still. There's a lot of finagling. I enjoy world building. I like just playing with these assets. It's even cooler that these are like custom assets that like Drixie built specifically for our game. Just makes it even cooler. Pixel Wars. Ah. Yeah, definitely a transparent pixel there. I am curious why that's happening. Yeah, there is some light feathering around the outside. That doesn't happen in Krita. I think it's an export setting. Something to play with for another day. Okay. Rabbit holes. Easy to go down. Oh, we flipped it upside down. We went negative orthographic size. So this was all built at 1.5. I'm just curious whether or not, like, zooming out helps at all. And I don't think it does. These characters start to feel way too big for this world. Honestly, zooming in a little bit, I kind of like just 1.25 instead of 1.5. I like that scale a little bit more. What did we play with while we were... Hey Amorphous, welcome to the stream. Morning's been pretty good. We've mostly just been playing with tile maps and trying to build this background. Took a rather long time. But it's been interesting getting to this point. Mostly it's been me complaining about the perspective and trying to find ways of like tweaking the perspective so that the characters feel like they fit in the world a little bit more, but slowly coming to the realization that probably we want to build custom backgrounds and not use the dungeon art, just so that things fit a little bit better. But we're getting a lot closer. And I mean, really, as like working on programming and design, it's not really my job, it's Trixie's job, but Trixie's never done any game development stuff, whereas I have like 10 years of game dev experience, so like it's kind of me trying to figure out how to communicate to her in some regards how like perspective's a thing and we need to make sure that we get it. But she also understands because she's like done a lot of general sketching and painting. It's been a hobby for her for a long time, so she gets the artistic concepts. So I don't know. Maybe I don't need talk. Maybe she'll just figure it out by looking at it. It's highly possible. I think I like zoomed in at least a little bit more. What about like, whoa, that's too far. 0.4 instead of 0.5. Like at this point, we're just splitting hairs. They feel small here. Like at 1, they feel like they're tiny little creature people. Even if we were to like shift the camera over a little bit so we got a little bit more wall. Yeah, I don't love 1. I've never thought about this problem before, says Amorphous. It makes me wonder what the battle screen in like FF7 looks like, whether they feel right-sized and everything. I mean, I was looking at some reference a little while ago for like Mario RPG, and I think that like that's a good reference as it's slightly isometric. So it kind of shows a little bit of like, here it is, open image and new tab. Like these characters like obviously this is kind of similar isometric diamond shaped for the floor, so this is the same kind of perspective, walls going up and down the back left and right wall. But like these characters clearly feel like, well, obviously they're arranged diagonally as well to match that environment, whereas right now we're trying to cut them across instead of having them line up. And obviously the perspective of this character, we did design the character concept with a 45. We were kind of looking at something like Final Fantasy Tactics as like a good representation of like what I think a cool character looks like, and so we ended up moving into this isometric kind of like for the character. And then we've been retrofitting the golem a little bit. I did a little bit of animation work this stream in order to like make his arm come down a little bit more on the front and line up his back leg and his back front leg in order to try and get it more like he's standing on an actual isometric ground. But yeah, the across the battle thing versus like diagonal, I think is part of the thing we're running into. As for like FF7, well, not the remake. Let's see. Images. This is just a lot of pictures of Cloud. Combat. Open image in a new tab. Right, so like the thing with something like Final Fantasy VII though is it's like 3D, so the camera is often like panning around the scene, which is really cool, but it ends up where like they can kind of look fine no matter what angle they come in at. But because we're working with flat 2D, it means that the flat 2D objects need to look like they are in the same perspective or same camera angle as the characters. But yeah, interesting problems. I think 1.2 is fine. I think 1.3 is fine. I think for now, I'm probably just going to leave it at 1.4. I'm just going to zoom in ever so slightly. I think it looks a little bit better when the characters are a little bit smaller. Actually, that's a good point that I haven't even tried playing with, is I haven't actually tried playing with the actual character sizes themselves. What if we were to just scale everyone down a little bit? We could go the other route. Rather than scaling the world, we could scale the characters down. I think that's way too much. Because the reason I look at scaling the characters down is if we scale the characters down, we could potentially fit them more diagonally. We would have more space. Also, because we're trying to do this kind of mechanic with like a hero plus a companion for every single one, it means that we have two characters taking up the space of what in a standard RPG would take up one character space. I know I'm playing all of this or running all of this in live too, but that's fine. I want to have this be reversible. I don't think I want to keep anything here. I'm just playing. Just moving some pieces around and seeing what impact it has. Eh. Wait, what? Apparently we had somehow pulled one of the characters off camera at some point. Whoops. Huh. Hmm. The characters being just generally a bit smaller, I think, helps. It allows us to space them out a little bit easier. Oh, the character selection box is calculated at the beginning. Okay, let me fix these guys, because somehow they got positioned off screen at some point. So this should be -3, -5, -3.75. -3, -5, -3.75. That's better. Yeah, even just going back and forth between what we had before and this, like, I actually do think scaling the characters down a little bit, just giving them more space between each other, actually decrowds everything a little bit. It does make it feel a little weird because now we've got these... Yeah, I don't mind these guys being bigger either. That's fine. Because I imagine the enemies will be bigger in the end. So if we went to 0.8, could we fit them a little bit better in here? So that we're not hugging the bottom of the screen just to get everyone to fit on. I like that a lot more. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's still around in chat, Morphus or DevBB, if you're still around. But thoughts, opinions? I know we're all splitting or I'm splitting hairs here, but I think that there's a. I think it's better. Yeah, I think as much as I want the characters to be big in this scene, I feel like there's so much UI that I need to fit on between this turn order indicator, between like I'm going to have some way of indicating the current element infusion in the battlefield. I have the actual command system as well. Like, yeah. Yeah. I think I like that a lot more, to be honest. Just scaling everyone down a little bit. All right, cool. Let's lock that in. Now, how do I lock that in while we're in play mode? So, the easiest way is for me to actually write it down. Okay, so what did we do? We meant character at 4.72 position, 0.85, -8.2. Next character was 4.02, 0.8, -4.39. Oh, the most fascinating stream content that the world has ever seen. 3.38, 0.62, -0.47. I do want to do a refactor on the way these characters are placed in general, though. I'm going to save this out just so that we have this position set up for future reference. But like, the fact that they're in like 3-dimensional world space and they have like if we go out of 2D mode, like the fact that they have like a Z value right now is ridiculous. They should just be on a flat plane. Whoa, whoa. okay, camera kind of just decided to go off on its own there for a second. And this was all at 0.8 size. So scaling everything down by 20%. All right. This also can't be the final way that I handle this either. Oh, fun. The way I tweaked that it was just by changing the Y values, which used to be all 0. Because they used to have to sit on the ground. Yeah, I really need to fix this. Okay, that was faster than I thought it would be. I only need to write down the Y. Okay. Like, in fact, they probably should be standing in the same spot where the actual, like, this UI is laid out. So it's easier to match things up. This box almost feels too big now in comparison. This guy here is now too high. Fine. I'm not going to continue tweaking this. Okay, cool. So that's the battle scene rebuilt a little bit in order to kind of get a background in there. I didn't really do any coding today. This was all just like design kind of play around. But it feels a lot better than this. I think even the fact that they need to be smaller was informed by the fact that now that they're in this world, they could all fit on the screen here as like big boys, 20% bigger, because there was nothing else going on. But now that we have some background elements, it's just like, yeah, these guys just need to be smaller. They're just taking up too much actual real screen space. Cool. I'm also not sure about this whole flame slash thing. There's a lot of polish that needs to be done here, but I'm getting very close to being able to just put in some real values and start being able to actually test combat and balancing, and like that's kind of my next thing, I think. Probably not right this second, but like I want to start. I have all the pieces of the puzzle with like the elemental generation, the elemental consuming, with turn order now being turn order instead of ATB. So each unit takes an individual attack. Like it's all getting to the point now where it's all structured enough and close enough that I should be able to start putting in some prototype values and start figuring out whether or not this is going to be fun. And then scrapping it and doing it again and again and again. But I think the core turn system, combat, the element may not stage, but like the core systems are there. It's now just finding the twist that makes this fun and different and interesting. I think it's going to be a lot to do with this. I also still need to fit somewhere on the UI here the health of these characters and their magic points. So much UI. I hate UX. It takes up so much stupid room. It's probably going to need to be along this back wall, I think. Likely just move this guy forward a little bit. And then we'll probably just have to put some UI kind of along the back here that's just saying current health of hero, current health of companion, magic points, etc., etc., etc. And then for the enemies, I think I'll probably do something similar to Octopath, where like when you select them in Octopath, their name will appear below them, and that name will have a color indicating how wounded they are. And that's probably the only health indication I'll give. Cool. Morpheus says, personally, kind of a big fan of clunky UI. Modern trends generally have as little UI on the screen as possible, and it doesn't feel the same to me. Yeah, I mean, there's information I want to display. Like turn order, I think is kind of what it is. It kind of has to take up space. I think that I kind of want to be able to show the abilities for each character or each person, and I'm gonna want to show the health here. But I do think I want to save room just with this section. I think maybe for this part here where it says Ice Slash, I think what I might want to do... I think the thing that I can really get bogged down in sometimes is like, I just want to perfect like not perfect everything, but I want to like figure out what the real UX is going to look like. And you know, it's just not. I'm just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It takes a very long time to figure out what the UI of a game looks like. We never modified this since we put it in, have we? Yeah, that doesn't need to be nearly as big. Yeah. Sorry, Amorphous. Reducing the clunkiness at least a little bit. Copy the component. But yeah, I can get real bogged down in just like playing with it forever until eventually it's just like, why am I even spending time on this? Like it's not something that's valuable towards answering whether or not the combat's going to be fun. But at the same time, I think incrementally moving things a little bit at a time towards something that feels nicer will in the end get me there close, or get me to a final product that feels better somewhere along the line. Like it will be better. Haven't really zoomed all the way out, have we? So scale 1, this is what it'll look like. I think it needs a little bit more space. We can't give it any more space. Let's just pull it out. So this is what it'll look like in reality. These characters are still pretty big though. The quality of them hasn't been lost too much by scaling them down. I'm actually really happy with that. That flame slash feels a little bit better. I think that there's still more work, but again, incrementally getting there. Yeah, we probably should have pulled it out, Amorphous, at some point sooner. Amorphous said in chat, yeah, not too bad. I should turn chat on, but things are a bit weird today. There was a bit of technical difficulties at the beginning. But yeah, we haven't really pulled it out to take a look at it at full size. Like even this water back here looks better now that we're zoomed out. The walls along the edge here are a bit better. I think I want to replace some of the cracked ones. I literally could be finicking forever. I swear. There's just so many little things with game development that's like, oh, you know, that could be different. It doesn't have to be that way. Let's go back in. You know, that's what I should do. Okay. I'm going to tweak this one last thing here, and then I think what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go copy all this over and start building an actual level. At least for a little while. I don't know how much longer I'll be on today, but first, let's just try and tweak some of these walls. So Drixie made this cracked wall, which is I think the one we're using. That we do have a variety on that. How does that look? Oh, right, this needs to be on level -1. Color palette's a little bit off. Is there one that's a little bit closer for that position there? Yeah, I think that's fine. What about the sewer pipe? Does the sewer pipe fit? Sewer pipe has kind of one of the most off coloring right now. It's one of the early ones that Trixie did. think it's just that the cracked ones are a little bit darker in general. I think the dark ones kind of look better. They were done later. Literally, you can see the progression of skill. I do like the slime wall, though. But I don't think it fits. Okay. I'm going to leave it. Okay, cool. Let us build a new scene, which will be the dungeon that goes with this battle background. Let's make a new scene. Create new scene. And we shall call it Sewers Dungeon. Alright, and now let us go back to the combat scene, and for the sake of ease of setup, let's steal this grid and this camera. Let's also go into cinematic camera. Let's create a 2D camera. That should just work. Let's do orthographic size 3, which is what we kind of want our dungeon level to be. Me and Trixie had like a huge, like, we went on a small, small little trip this past weekend to like a cabin area. It was all safe. It was all zero contact. But while there, we ended up spending a lot of time talking about like this narrative of the JRPG and how important narrative is towards like, because we're not building, like when I say JRPG, I mean JRPG. I mean Final Fantasies of the world. And narrative has to be something that really means something. And so we've kind of come up with like the first 20 or so scenes. They might change over time, but we have a kind of a broad first 20 or so scenes that we'd like to see in the game. And one of the very first early areas is going to be a sewer. So it just, and honestly, it's been a really cool tile set to see Trixie build. All right, so I pulled this out to orthographic size 3, right? Why does this still look so zoomed in? Is this not connected to that camera I just hooked up? Every other time that I've added the cinematic camera, it's just figured its stuff out. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's viewing the world through the cinematic. Probably because this isn't tagged with main camera. Is that why it didn't work? Let's go grab from the town scene that Sneaky One is working on. This character, which comes with the basic version. And then let's hook this up as the follow target. Let's put this back to 0. And this back to 0. And then this guy should be at 0, 0 as well. Why don't I see him? There he is. That should be fine. All of the work we spent on Stream like 10 figuring out cinematic cameras comes down to this moment. Even though we're not doing 3D anymore, still need to know how the dead zone works. Sweet. Okay, so we want to scale this guy down. I think that the sizing that we've settled on is this. And then again, I'm going to double check to make sure that the orthographic is set to 3 and 3. I think that's the size that I like. And the size that Drixie is reluctantly okay with. Cool. And so yeah, to flip between the two of them, we'd be walking around this area, and then we would have a fight. And that fight would switch to, from this perspective and this sizing to this perspective and sizing. Which I think as we get the two of them set up and actually swapping during random encounters, I might need to play with the scaling a little bit more, but overall, I think I'm okay with it. Okay. So let's build a scene. So let's see. Let's go to primary view here, change it to 2D. It's 2D, right? Why? Everything looks a little bit off. Interesting. Some of that stuff is a little wonk, but that's fine. So grid's at 0, right? And we don't have any funky values. Nope. So I think what I want to do is I want to start over. So we're going to start with 2D isometric. We're going to set it to 1, 1, top right, individual. Those are the basic settings I need to set up, and this will be the floor layer. And then I'm not going to worry too much about set dressing. I'm more interested in just getting some pathing figured out. So I think that I want most paths in the sewer to be about 4 wide. And I want sewer areas to be about 4 wide. Okay, so then I want another one of these. Isometric. Sewer walls. I'm going to have sewer walls be 1, 1 individual. And then go down a level. Like so. And then we're going to make another one. A lot of setup at the beginning here. This will be sewer water? Sounds gross, but I think that's the most accurate term for what we have here. Sewer water, and then we're going to do one of these. So that's that level. That's that level. Yeah, we want this at level, at the lowest level. And we want it to be about 4 wide. Okay. Now, if we go back to sewer walls, we're actually going to want... Whoa. Oh, I tinted the tile map. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. I think I'll keep Trixie's original color, but neat, neat. I need to figure out how animation tiles work too, so that I can help Trixie set that up. Okay, and I think we need one more level, which will be isometric, and these will be walls. Also, tinting could be helpful for blending the slightly different tiles together, since you were having trouble getting them to work with some slightly darker ones. Yeah, I could, but I think a lot of that stuff I'd rather see, like, Trixie just tweak. Like, it's that the color palette she used, like, these are the exact same sets of green and grays, but, like, just slightly different amounts or base colors. I'd like more have her tweak some of that stuff would be better, I think. That's 0, that's -1, okay. One thing I don't love, which I don't have a great solution for, is that if I want to have 2 high walls, which I do like the way 2 high walls look, I end up running into this problem where, like, I don't know, it takes up so much room, basically. Okay, let's make sure I've done everything right. This is the wall layer. This is the sewer water. This is the sewer walls. Yeah, and then this is the floor. Cool. Sewer walls. I also find it super tricky to keep track of exactly where I am at any given point. Like what depth I'm at in the system is sometimes tricky to keep track of, and which active tile map do I have selected. And there's ways to help with like having it set to focus so I can only see which ones are currently active, but still sometimes it's easy to lose track. Amorphous says, yeah, that's the problem with isometric view in general. Lots of games struggle with that. Yeah, the walls, like having the walls be, I don't know, it's tricky. Let's do walls 1 and character depth 0, I think. Actually, character depth should be 1, I think, so he doesn't accidentally clip through the floor because of Z sorting. And then the wall should probably be 2. Okay. I was going to go back to the floor level. I was going to select this again. And then I was going to do this one. I was going to go to Z level 0. So much... Like, I'm getting used to it, but there is a lot of, like, have I done all my steps? Because if you don't, you can get in a bad spot. So again, 4 wide, 2 wide. Probably don't need to be this exact, but I feel like being this exact, so I will be. Okay, let's just make a room. Isn't it exact layout I'm looking for right now? I'm more just exploring what are the possibilities in this system. Like, I'm still understanding what are the limitations of... What are the limitations of the... isometric view? Like we were just saying, the wall stuff, like the fact that walls overlap so much of the floor is just a standard problem with isometric. And I'm just, as I build more with these different tiles, the more I start to see those issues crop up more and more. And it becomes more and more apparent where I'm going to have to try and solve issues. What did I do? What did I do, Amorphous? They're all on the wall there. It refuses to die. Why does it refuse to die? Oh, I'm on sewer water? There we go. Okay. Let's try that again. So walls, level 0. Here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. Oh, magic. And then we go up to -1, which is 1 higher in this system, apparently. Okay, and then now we go to sewer water. I legitimately feel like I could just do sewer water as a... Right, we're at the right level. I feel like I could just do sewer water, like, just as the bottom base floor. Like, I could just fill this whole thing in. because everything else should be on top of it, so it could just be the bottom floor. That's not bad as long as you don't mind the walls when you're building interiors. I don't think that it's overlapping too much. Yeah, we'll see. We will see. What? Nothing? So 4 wide running down the front here. Okay, then we go to sewer. It's so easy to just click on the wrong one. Okay. Now we go to walls. And then we can build variations on some of these things later. So we can add in different wall types. Floor, 0, select. Go down a level. Okay. What does this look like as I walk around now that we've spent a bit of time building? So there's a problem. Do they have any rotation on them? Like something felt off when we started. Somehow this came in with some rotation. We must have set the target wrong at some point somehow. Don't know. Okay. Now there's no collision or anything right now, so we can walk into walls. There's also weird clipping issues I find, whereas if you get too close to stuff, it can kind of freak out a little bit, but... Oh, these walls need to be on the same level as the character, so that we go over top of it and then behind it as we walk further. Yeah, now we're getting that weird clipping issues. But again, I probably shouldn't be able to walk this far into this wall, probably. I mean, there's enough room in here to do something. Oh, this, I wanted to increase his speed, I think. What was I playing with, 2? No, 2 feels too fast. Was it 1.75? I need to get my Xbox controller hooked up. Right now I'm doing this via WASD, but I would really like to see how this is feeling once we get a joystick. 0.5? Yeah, 1.5 is I think where I like it right now. Okay. So this is a level. It's not a super interesting level, but it's a level. Morpheus says, well, there you go. It's a video game. Ship it. We're done. I mean, you're not totally wrong. This little dude guy, this little witch, is from the Isometric Unity pack. Not something that Trixie built. At some point, we're going to have to replace it. Okay, this guy is sprite-based. So far, we've been trying to get away with... Well, I mean, we haven't really animated anything, but the plan has been that we do everything with 2D bone animations. This thing has 8 directions of movement as well. It has up, down, left, right, and then diagonal, 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 and diagonal. So if we want to do that with bone anyway, it's not important right now. I'm getting sidetracked, but in order to make, I think it was your point that like it's a video game, ship it. The one thing that drew to me was like, oh, the player character isn't right though. We can't ship it. That's not our art. We got to make that. But I think to replace this guy is going to be a bit of work. Because I think Trixie's going to have to draw each of these different perspectives, and then I think I want to still use bone animations. So we're going to have to like have him drawn in this perspective, and then when you walk this way, have his arms flail back and forth, and then when you move this way, switch to one of the other ones. Oh, interesting movement. When he goes back to idle, he always flips to a direction. That's cool. So if you want to make an idle animation, you don't have to worry about doing idle in the other 4 directions. You just have to animate idle for some of the... Oh, no, never mind. Never mind. I bet you it's because... Yeah. Okay, never mind. It does have a stop there. I think it's because I'm using WASD that I'm letting go of one key slightly before another, which is causing it to choose its last direction based off whichever diagonal or directional key I pressed. Never mind. But sometimes I can get it to stay diagonal. Huh, cool. I think it's if I leave momentum. Yeah, because this character doesn't just stop on a dime. I think if I leave momentum, sometimes he does it. All right, let's keep building. So, 2D. There we go. Sewer walls. Down a level. Up a level. Floor. Grab. Grab. There we go. Switch to rectangle. Whoa. Switch to rectangle. I tried to WSD to move, but WSD in this system is also something else. All right, and then walls. Yeah, I think D is brush. So if I'm painting, I can't just do WSD to move the camera around. +1 level. Why does my wall disappear if I go to level 1? Oh, I was zoomed in too much. clipping the camera. The camera was too close, and so it wouldn't render the object. What is happening with this camera? It is not happy today. Okay, now what did I just mess up that this wall is rendering over top of the floor? That looks fine. That looks fine. Oh, because this is a wall tile. And I need it to be a sewer wall tile is what I'm trying to draw. Needs to be on a different level. Hearing some weird noises in the background. There is construction somewhat nearby, so it is likely that you are hearing construction. I would guess that would be a nail gun or a concrete like smasher of some kind. I could close the window, but it's already warm. Hopefully it's not too loud. That's interesting though, because my audio quality is usually quite good on some of that stuff, but I guess it's such a specific tone. Like, because this mic only picks up what's right in front of me. Like, once I got this, the fans and the computer and stuff all kind of disappeared, but it must be high pitch enough that it's just carrying. Yeah, and that's probably why it sounds more like hair clippers than it does anything else. Is you're saying it's barely audible. It's probably because of that, because it's probably just barely picking it up. It just sounds weird, I would bet. Sorry for that. Let's change the background color to black rather than blue. Yeah, that's some sort of, yeah. Now I hear it, and I can't unhear it. Yeah, that's what I thought. I just put that on the wrong spot. Okay. Sewer walls. There. Something is weird here, and I know what it is. It's that this thing is down a couple levels, but this thing is up a few levels. So I think in order to stop that from feeling off, I think it needs to be like this. This is on the wall layer, right? Yeah. I also want to switch all of these walls to be the same, because at some point I swapped on this top section. I grabbed one of the ones that has the flip. Trixie was trying to be helpful and being like, oh, I'll flip some walls for you. And I was like, that's cool. And I didn't realize it was going to be a giant nuisance because I'm constantly using the wrong one. And then my lighting looks completely off. Okay, light side is all facing on the right and dark is all on the left again. Good. How does that feel? Did we make the video game good? Okay, so this is with black instead of blue for the background. We need to increase the character's movement speed back up to 1.5. I accidentally hit plus, but Unity didn't care. It was like, I know what you mean. Sweet. Aha, good call, good call. Amorphous is suggesting that instead of doing a solid black, we do something more in like a gray tone. Or a very, very dark gray. So it's not so harsh. And you are correct. That looks better. Could even be maybe a little bit. Mm, 20? 20 looks good. Okay, cool. Just do it that way. I was trying to save a swatch, but it's just more trouble than it's needed to be. Okay. So, also thinking at some point, rather than doing random encounters, I would like to have like blob enemies. Like, doesn't need to represent the actual enemy you'll fight, but maybe just dark shadows of some kind that will pop up and you can like choose to walk into it or to avoid it. Maybe eventually we'll have some sort of slash. I can't. It's too loud now. Can't not hear it. Okay. All right. But yeah, so shadow enemies instead of random encounters. Because I think random encounters generally feels kind of just like, like it's out of your control completely. But I think that shadow monsters that like you can attack or move into and try and avoid potentially could be more interesting. Like if there was a monster that appeared here and it tries to walk towards you if you get within, say, 3 tiles of it, and you're like, it doesn't see me yet, but I need to cross this bridge. And like having to be like, okay, I'm going to hold, it's coming after me. Like that feels more fun than just being like, battle. Like so the reason I bring this up is these pathways large enough to dodge an enemy? Like that's have we given the player enough space that if we built our levels where everything was, I keep changing that in play mode. Did we build our levels with large enough pathways that a player could dodge an enemy? That's why I went like 4 wide instead of like just 2 wide. And I think it's enough. I think this should be, yeah, Amorphous is kind of agreeing in chat. So yeah, I think this should be fine. I think 2 wide doorways are interesting. I think that's still fine. I'm not positive what I'm going to populate all of this with. This is the thing I love about video game development, or at least this is how my mind works on video game development, is that like I build piece by piece by piece, and as I build a new piece, there's always some new problem that I find where I'm like, you know what I've realized? What am I going to populate this with? I guess there'll be enemies for me to dodge and move through, and I'll be trying to get to the end, and that will be like the primary. But like when I come into a space like this, like a room, is this going to be filled with treasure chests? Is it going to be filled with sparkling, twinkling lights that are items that have dropped on the ground. Like, depending on how we want to do, it's the same thing. Is it going to be loot pickups, or will there be special enemies in here? Will there be like shopkeepers hidden in dungeons? I don't know. I don't know, but and I'm not saying I'm going to figure it out right this second. I'm just saying that as I build these things step by step and I start to see it form in reality, there's just these little like boobles, little bauble of ideas of like, huh, now that I see this in action, where do I go from here? I don't like how empty this space is over here. We're going to go with, I guess puzzles is like the primary thing. If it's not just trying to dodge enemies and get through an area, in most games it's generally going to be some sort of puzzle that you're trying to navigate. What is the fill? U is the key. I'm on the floor, right? Yeah, okay. Walls are still looking correct. Good, 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 good. Rather than constantly swapping, let's just build a few. Like if it was more linear in some spots where it was like, okay, it's not just a big sewer corridor area. Sewer corridor area is neat and interesting and more dynamic, but we could have a series of rooms, something like this. One, two, three, four. Starting to feel like a thing. That's all floor. Okay, now switch to walls. Grab from here. Using like the poke through to see whether or not I'm at the edge is kind of cool. And then we go up a level. That's getting quicker. I'm starting to feel. Go this way to see when we've reached the end. Okay. Like if you can't see it behind the wall, it probably doesn't matter anyways, but. All right. Then we go sewer walls, not water. Down a level. Like that. Okay. And then we go sewer water. Then we go U tool. All right, cool. Having to try and pretend collision, but that's fine. Collision in this system is like another layer. Basically, we like the way we have floors, sewer walls, sewer water, the way that we keep swapping between those. We would need to do another one. Oh, I need to do a wall out there. I didn't see the need. But the collision is just another layer that you have to add on top, and then you build a bunch of purple things that don't render but will block the player's path. Yeah, these walls take up a lot of space by being too high, but I just like the height of it. It just feels a little bit closer to what I'd like to see. Cool. Feels like a zone. I feel like I want like rubble or something. Like something to block this off that isn't just more wall. Again, if there's enemies in these rooms, this would be hard to dodge, but I think interesting. And you're obviously going to want to get into some fights, so making some areas very difficult to maneuver, like if there is an enemy in this area, and like the only way to dodge him would be to like get him to follow you and then try and chase and run around to bypass, to leash him. But you would want to try and make it so that the player ends up having to hit some of these encounters. That brings up a good question of whether or not I want to have placed enemies or whether or not I want enemies to randomly just appear on the map and then just pace and then disappear. Was the Tales game did that? Tales had like enemies spawn and despawn, I think on their overworld. I think there's a limited amount of things that we can do with the tools we have, but I think just even like sewer water, like a wall to indicate the split between water and floor, and then walls still gives us a lot of tools. It's just a matter of figuring out what we want to do with like the layouts, I guess. Like, I don't have a set thing I'm trying to figure out here. I'm just more playing. Interesting. I can't paint the walls if they're deselected, which kind of makes sense. But at the same time is somewhat difficult. Here's a question. Do I want the sewer water to go at this level? Level 0. Next level down. Level 2. Okay, yeah. Do I want this to extend past? Because this will be darkness on this side, on these outer sides. What does that look like if it just goes out into the nothingness? I imagine that looks kind of weird. Yeah, it does. So we would need to extend the wall out as far as your eye can see in order for that to make that look right, which would look something like... which I think is fine. I also wonder if it could be interesting. I'm doing all of this on sewer walls, even though it's technically a little bit higher, but... Oh, these wall... Okay, I'll have to do on the wall layer, because the wall layer has a higher depth. But I'm also curious if it might be interesting doing something like this, too. Something weird's happening. Okay, this is on the ground. This is one up. Oh, they're not aligned. That's what the weirdness is. Somehow I've done multi-select, which is not what I was intending. Now how do I undo multi-select? Oh no. Oh no. I've somehow turned this brush into... I've turned the brush into a thing. Is it just a visual glitch, maybe? Let's switch scenes. No, it's... This is it now. This is my life. It's the... Okay. Okay. I think it might just be a visual glitch. It's not. I'm totally erasing in chunks. I don't know what I've done, Amorphous. I don't know. Okay, well, regardless, we fixed the weirdness. These walls weren't perfectly aligned, which was causing some oddness, but we've managed to fix it. So now the walls go above, which is kind of what I was trying to play with in the first place, was this idea of like, what if the walls were higher? Does it make sense to do... No, that looks odd. Probably shouldn't have done these as sewer walls, but it seemed appropriate. Sewer walls. Real walls. There we go. I'll fix that part. Yeah, 100% amorphous. I do agree that I think that this would be the type of place that you would see a grate. And that's kind of what I was building, is like, what would that look like without that art asset? Could I make it work? And I think the answer is no. I think that I just need to maybe put in a request for like a simple transparent bars or something that we could put in here. Maybe it has an arc and a like a corner piece and then just a repeatable piece. Maybe. Maybe there's a corner piece that goes here that kind of connects here, and a piece that goes here, and then some metal bars that just go down. Like that I think that could be interesting. And Drixie was trying to find like ideas for more aesthetic tiles that we would need, and I think that that would be a really good one. This feels better now with a wall on the end though. And I like that it extends beyond regardless. Even if we remove that top section here and just have it so that there's like just a pathway, I think that's kind of cool. So we're moving through these spaces. I'm trying to think of the design criteria. The design criteria for these spaces is to explore. We want to look through these dungeons. We want to be able to find items that will improve our characters. We want to fight and grind a little bit potentially to improve our character. But if we don't want to grind, we can also dodge past enemies in order to progress further. And the other driving force, because this is a narrative-based JRPG we're trying to build, will be the story. So we'll have to build a story that grips you, that wants to pull you forward, so that these sections are more about making progress narratively as well as progression gameplay wise. So we'll make these things somewhat linear with a goal of getting through the sewers and getting out to the other side to see the next story narrative. So that these things need to be linear in progress. They can have maybe an openness in the middle. This is a bad example, but like in the way that like you come into here, there's a middle section in which like I can do a bit of exploring and go, oh, do I go left or right? And I go left and I'm like, or up, I guess. And I'm like, there's nothing here. Okay. And then I can go down and be like, oh, there's another pathway here, and this leads into another linear section. So like, but at the end of the day, it's linear into maybe a wide open space to explore into linear again, that eventually leads to the exit that allows me to continue progressing in the game. But these things need to be areas where I can fight, maneuver, escape, make progress, find items to improve my character. Those are kind of the main criteria that these things need to have, as well as be visually interesting, which is what I'm trying to do a little bit here with like the great thing is like, what kind of other visual interest props could we build that will allow us to fill in the environment without taking up so much space that the player is trapped in a single one tile to move. So like adding some crates here could be interesting. Okay. It's now just after 1 for me. I've been streaming for I think 3 hours. Actually, I can find out. Yeah, 3 hours and 10 minutes. So I think this seems like a pretty good place to call it. Thanks, Amorphous, for hanging around. Dev B, thanks for chatting earlier in the stream. I think that we're good. I think we... Well, I'm glad that you had fun, Amorphous. I also had fun. I feel like I did some productive work. I have a lot of stuff here that I can bring to Drixie later in the day when she gets off work and just be like, hey, here's some more props that would be cool to build. And we'll see if she's interested, but at least I'll have more ideas for her. I actually think that the art that she's given me allows me to build a space that is a space. Like, this looks like a sewer. I think that there's always room for improvement, but I actually think that this is pretty solid for about a day's worth of work. Having never touched isometric tiles. I'm just going to keep adding more modifiers. Okay. Cool. Cool. For now, though, this is going to be Tolty signing out. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.